researchers, partners, and stakeholders around the center, around the agency, and out in the public. A strong team with an important role. The Mission Information and Test Systems Directorate helps separate the real from the imagined through flight.
Closeout crew is not special. There's thousands of people out here that have thousands of jobs, and each one's equally important. The only unique thing about us is we have the last hands-on job before the bird flies.
The closeout crew is the last to shake the gloved hands of space shuttle astronauts before they rocket into orbit from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
We close the vehicle out for flight, which means we take out anything that doesn't fly, we put in what needs to fly, we put the astronauts in, strap them in, and we close the hatch for flight.
The team is made up of NASA and United Space Alliance workers from Kennedy and the Johnson Space Center in Houston. The orbiter closeout crew chief coordinates launch day activities and communicates with the firing room via radio. He goes by the call sign OVCC. Two technicians are experts at the shuttle crew module side hatch, and two insertion technicians specialize in helping the astronauts strap into their seats. An additional astronaut joins the closeout crew as the Prime Astronaut Support Person with a call sign ASP. A NASA quality representative rounds out the team.
3/10 and 3/10.
20 people are certified to work with the closeout crew, but only a few serve at a time.
So on launch day, we all come together to make one team. There's only 7 people out of that 20 that would support a launch, come up here as a prime team.
It all happens at the 195-foot level of the shuttle launch pad, where the orbiter access arm leads to the climate-controlled white room. The closeout crew reports to the launch pad shortly after the shuttle's external fuel tank is filled with propellant several hours before launch. The team sets up its own rescue gear and takes care of some pre-boarding housekeeping duties. Then the astronauts arrive, and suddenly the white room gets a whole lot more crowded.
Okay, once the crew gets here, naturally I can't put all 7 people in, or 6 or 7 in the ship at one time.
The countdown allows 50 minutes to get everyone strapped in with their gloves and helmets on. The astronauts need help putting on their parachute harness and communications gear before climbing aboard. After a round of communications checks, anything not needed for flight has to come out, including the closeout crew.
All right, gotta go to close the hatch.
So we go and close the hatch, pressurize the cabin, do some last minute things. It takes us roughly an hour after we close the hatch to get out of here.
But before they go, the white room must be partially taken apart so it can swing back into position beside the shuttle if there's an emergency, even if the astronauts have already opened the hatch.
You can see these billows behind me. We deflate those, and this white room has hinges, and so we would swing one door out, swing this piece, comes this way. So there's a big gaping hole right here.
When everything is cleaned up and strapped down, it's time for the closeout crew to leave the astronauts alone at the launch pad. They've got it down to a science, but with so many tasks involving so many pieces of shuttle and ground hardware, things don't always go according to plan. From burned out light bulbs on cockpit switches to problems with the hatch, the closeout crew has seen it all and had to fix it fast. So they bring 2 boxes of tools to the white room, with even more in their truck down by the elevator.
You can't always think of everything, but these guys are very good at improvising.
When the shuttle is fully loaded and ready to fly, everyone in or near the vehicle is working in a hazardous area. The closeout crew and the astronauts practice escaping the launch pad in case there's ever an emergency. Everyone has to learn how to move from the white room to the slide wire baskets that would whisk them away from the pad down to a nearby bunker. In an emergency, a series of overhead sprinklers called the fire system would activate and lights would come on, showing everyone on the 195-foot level the way out.
So we have this painted yellow with black chevrons. We call it the yellow brick road, and that's because you basically can't see anything but your feet. So you follow the chevrons out to your primary egress route to the slide wire baskets.
One of the benefits to being part of the closeout crew is working closely with the astronauts.
It's a unique gift, I think, that we get to know them personally. We get to shake their hand right before they go in. Some of the astronauts that are on the closeout crew actually fly. So, you know, one time supporting a mission, they'll be wearing a white uniform with us, and the next time they'll be wearing an orange uniform getting ready to fly themselves.
As the program draws to a close, many Space Shuttle team members are making the most of the final flights. And that, of course, includes the closeout crew.
And I'll probably just stand over there in the corner and soak it in, try and remember as much as I can, and hope that another program comes along and I get to do this again.
Even astronauts need a place to stay before they rocket into space. The crews of the Space Shuttle launching from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, that place was the astronaut crew quarters, a set of bedrooms, offices, and facilities built into the center's operations and checkout building. Resembling a college dorm, the crew quarters doesn't scream technology in space as much as it whispers comfort and familiarity. And that's the idea. Give the astronauts a place to relax, eat, and sleep before they go to work in space on missions that will mark some of the most taxing times in their lives.
My first impression when I arrived was, wow, I'm in astronaut crew quarters. I mean, you walk in, it was before it had been remodeled on my first flight, and these are the rooms that the Apollo astronauts stayed in. There's nothing fancy about it, you know, it's not going to the Ritz-Carlton. It wasn't even a Motel 6, but it was astronaut crew quarters, and that was really special.
Gemini astronauts were the first to stay in the crew quarters. All the Apollo astronauts slept here before going to the moon. The facility grew when the space shuttles began taking more and more people into space at a time. The aura of crew quarters grew with each landing and each new spaceflight achievement, even among the astronauts. A couple of the rooms were seen publicly on launch day, but most of it remained a mystery until the shuttle's retirement. Kennedy Space Center Director Bob Cabana, a former astronaut who spent many nights in crew quarters preparing for his missions or helping others get ready for theirs, showed off some of the lesser-known areas of the facility, along with the spots that are familiar to space program enthusiasts.
The dining room, what you guys probably remember seeing all the time, is, you know, the crew sitting at the table, and they're all smiling, and everybody's, you know, up and ready for launch, and they're in their crew shirts, and you know, they take general shots of everybody, and then they move off, and then the crew actually sits down and eats.
The cooks at crew quarters have to accommodate a range of tastes, keeping in mind that astronauts are often concerned about how their stomachs will behave once they get into weightlessness.
I'll never forget my first flight. We're sitting around the table, and one of my crew members, who it's his first flight, and after the cameras all left, he's got steak and eggs and hash browns and coffee, and he's pouring hot sauce on, and my commander looks over and he says, going for color and distance, I see.
Like the rest of the facilities in crew quarters, the bedrooms are not extravagant, but they work.
It's a very small room. You got a desk, a bed, and a shower and a toilet in the bathroom. Very sparse, but very functional. It's very quiet. It's an elevated floor back here with sound insulation underneath, sound insulation up above, and so crews that are on weird schedules can actually come in here and get some sleep.
But a quiet room doesn't always do the trick when a launch is waiting the next day.
It's not anxious, it's just you want to get often do it. And in fact, one of the hardest things, some folks really like coming down to crew quarters and